Hi friends, today we're going to talk about updos and I'm really excited because we're going to do one straight haired updo and one curly hair updo. And what I'm excited about that we're going to do something a little bit different when it comes to our updo curriculum is we're going to be giving a blueprint. The same way that we give a blueprint or sectioning for a haircut, we're going to give sectioning for our updos. So I think that's where a lot of people struggle when it comes to updos is they feel like they don't know what direction to go. They don't know where to start. So we're going to take the guesswork out of that and we've made it very, very simple to follow. And we're going to do the same for our curly updo as well. So let's get started. There's a few things that I really want to hit home in our updo classes, okay? And the first being the prep, okay? So when a lot of people say to me, oh, I'm just not good at updos, generally I say to them, you're actually probably just not using enough product or not using the right product. So having our products work for you and not against you is going to be the biggest difference when it comes to updos. When you start using your product to work for you rather than bobby pins, extra back combing, when we're utilizing those things instead of our product, a lot of times we end up with a messy result and we get frustrated. So we're going to talk about prep because that's going to be the number one thing key to a success. Okay, so on my model here, I do not like to prep my mannequin a whole lot because I want them to see what this prep process looks like. I want to show them exactly how much of the product I am using during the prep because they're going to be surprised how much we're actually going to be using to prep. So my go-to to start is the Puff Me Dry Texture Spray, and I really want to get in there. We know that this is a great product from root to end to really prep the product, get that grit in there so that I can mold the hair to do what I want. It's going to work with me and not against me. So again, I'm going to really subsection through here and make sure I'm getting this throughout all of the hair. And of course, everyone loves the smell. So this is a great opportunity for them to really smell that product. But I'm getting it through all subsections, okay? Then when we talk about my prep product, through my root area, of course, I'm going to go in with the Puff Me powder, okay? So then I'm going through, again, the entire head, just really giving myself a good foundation of prep product. Am I going to add product along the way? Of course, but I know that I have a really great foundation of my prep products. So these are my two prep products that I go to when I'm speaking about prep products. Of course, Puff Me Light and Regular, as well as Dry Texture. Again, if needed, we could always go in with the dry shampoo. This could also qualify as a prep product as needed. But those are my go-tos, and I really want to feel that in there. I really want to shake it out. This is going to be my first key to success, and brush it through. Okay, so again, if I skimp on this step, right, we all know once we get to a bridal suite and there's all sorts of activity happening, sometimes it's easy to get distracted with our prep. But I've always, always, always regretted if I skimped on this step. So prep is key. We're going to really brush that through. We're going to next talk about our subsectionings in a few minutes here. But first I'm going to go through and I'm just going to give this hair some bend. So I'm going to show you guys right here. These are inspo pics for this updo. Very much that 90s Pam Anderson, but in a much more modern 2026 way. So the key to keeping it modern and not feeling dated is having our curls be nice and loose, soft, leaving some texture in there. When they're too polished, that's when it becomes dated, okay? So when it comes to my hold me, another thing that people can go wrong when we're working with updos is by going in too soon, too quickly, of too high of hairspray, okay? So I am working everything on low. That's my working spray. So I'm making sure to get on the top and the bottom of each section for my heat protection and my hold, and then I'm going to brush that through. Brushing the hold me through just makes it very soft, matte. Sometimes if we don't brush it through, it can end up looking too shiny right away. You can tend to get like some dents in there. You know what I'm saying. So I'm going to really brush that through, and I'm taking big subsections. I'm going to use a 1-inch iron, but you can use like a 1 1/4 for this. All I'm looking to do here is to create movement, okay? Because this movement is greatly going to help me when I'm getting all of this up, what direction these curls are going to go. I'm going to kind of let the hair tell me where I'm going to let this go. But I need the curl in there to do that, because if I left it straight, it's not going to tell me anything once it gets up here. Okay, so I'm curling everything away from the face. However, the direction in which you curl this doesn't necessarily matter. But we're just getting bend. I want to really stress that when you're demoing this, they don't need to go through and meticulously curl. We are just going through to get movement and bend to help us out in our final steps. Now I'm going to take vertical subsections. This is just for my efficiency, okay? So again, when I'm going through these subsections, in my head, I'm constantly feeling the hair and asking myself, is that enough grit? Is that enough prep? Okay, if not, if it feels too soft when I go through for this step, I'll go ahead and add a little bit more dry texture or puff me powder. Again, top and bottom, all sides. Now I'm going vertically, okay? And I'm going to come like in a beach ball pattern around the head. This is just to save me time, because we don't need to be meticulous. We're just, again, trying to get bend and movement. I don't set any of these curls. We're literally just getting our shape in there. So using a smoothing brush like a Mason Pearson or anything with mixed bristle, vinyl, and boar is going to give us a nice smooth transition or finish. So I really like to brush that through, make sure I have a nice clean canvas before I put these curls in. And I'm going to speed this up through the rest of this, and we will come back as soon as I finished curling. Okay, once we are all curled, we're going to talk about our subsections, okay? So, subsection number 1, second key to success is really laying out a blueprint. And we're going to pull out her fringe, okay? Obviously, I'm going to consult with her, and we're going to talk about how much of this she wants down. Since kind of a heavy face frame is still really in for updos, this is perfect. And I am going to place this in a clip. Subsection number 1, okay? Subsection number 2, we are going to grab this top section, and I am kind of just going through, skimming right at the parietal ridge and skimming off kind of what I would almost take if I was doing a half up, half down look. So right to the top of the crown and just above the parietal ridge. And I'll show you. And this does not need to be clean sectioning. In fact, I do like there to be some deviation, because then it's easier when we bring it back that I don't have straight lines that I'm trying to combine together. and blend. This just gives us some natural deviation there. So subsection number 2. Again, let me get closer for you. Right at the above the parietal ridge to the top of the crown, all the way around. Okay, subsection number 2. Subsection number 3 and 4 are going to be the same, repeated on each side. I'm just using my pinky again because I do not want super clean lines that are harder to blend and make look natural. So just taking my pinky, grabbing from the ear to the top of the crown. Subsection number 3. And we're going to have the same subsection on this side from top of the crown to my ear. Subsection 4. And subsection 5 is going to be all of this. This is going to be our twist. Okay? So let's talk about what we do with these subsections. And again, it's one thing to know how to section the hair, but now we need to know which part are we starting with. A lot of people struggle. Do I start in the back? Do I start in the front? Which way or how do I tackle this? For me, when I look at an inspo pic, okay, if it's something low and a lot of the focus is on the back, I will start in the back and then we bring everything back. If it's something high and we're seeing a lot of from the front, I'm going to start at the front and at the top. Okay, so that's exactly what we're going to do with this one. We are going to start, I'm going to lower her a little bit. We are going to start with our subsection 2, because subsection 1, we're going to utilize at the end. Okay, that's just our fringe. So for subsection 2, I'm going to utilize a wide tooth comb to just bring this back. Now, why I choose a wide tooth comb over like a smoothing brush is because this updo, we want to see some splits, okay? We don't want it to go too smooth. If I come in with a smoothing brush, a lot of times this is going to feel too tight. It's putting too much hair because it's taking too much tension and putting it in my hand. I want to loosely bring this back so that we maintain the integrity of some of these natural splits that are happening. That's what, again, keeps this current and doesn't feel like 1996. Although 1996 was a great year. So I'm just loosely combing that into my hand. Okay? And I'm okay with splits. What I am looking for is flyaways, okay? Because I want to tackle those now. If I wait to tackle any flyaways here, it's going to be a lot harder to control. So I'm going to tackle my flyaways now. Here's another common thing that sometimes I think hinders people in the updo process is they go in too soon with hairspray, okay? I don't want to go in, even for working purposes, necessarily with my Hold Me hairspray right now. I want to actually go in with the Bounce Me spray gel, okay? This is going to give me the hold that I need, but it's not going to create this burst of air that's going to create more flyaways and sometimes highlight flyaways, okay? So we're going to go down that hair shaft. Love that it's like a nice fine mist, so it's very easy to control. Again, I'm going to go back in with my wide tooth comb and just re-enhance a little of those splits that I created. Now, you don't want to go too crazy with the spray gel because I also don't want this to give the feel that it's like wet or too shiny, right? Because I love the finish that the dry texture spray gave me. But I do want the control of the spray gel, excuse me. So again, using my wide teeth comb and just getting it into my hand. From here, we are going to do a mini twist and flip this up top, okay? So instead of, if I came here, we want to take this hair back, right? And if I pin this here, 9 times out of 10, This is too much hair here, and these bobby pins are going to start to back out. We're going to talk a lot about pins too, because that's very, very important. But I'm actually going to utilize a flip because I want all this hair to go that direction. So why not in this process get it to do that by flipping this up? Okay, this is going to get hidden, so I'm not concerned about that. One thing to keep in mind here is elevation. Okay, so if I comb this into my hand and I twist it way down here, I'm not going to have as much hair up here. So that's, again, during the consult, if she says, I don't want to see a lot from the top, I might bring this from down here. But if she says, I want to see a lot from the top, I know that my elevation needs to come at least out from 90 degrees and then twist. Now I have a lot more hair to work with on top, okay? So now we have our twist up here. I'm going to create a bungee. Do not sleep on utilizing elastics and bungees over bobby pins, okay? And I'm going to tell you why. Bobby pins, a lot of times, are misused. So let's talk about pins really, really quick. For the purpose of this class, we are always going to use this bobby pin. We're going to call this a bobby pin. I found over the years, teaching many, many Updo classes, that a lot of people call these pins all different kinds of things. So I like to, at the beginning, just really go over our vocabulary, that this is our bobby pin, okay? And when we use bobby pins is when we are pinning hair to scalp only, okay? If we are pinning hair to hair, or even hair into hair padding, we are going to utilize a hair pin, okay? Again, hair pin. I use hairpins 9 times out of 10 over a bobby pin, okay? Unless I am pinning directly to the scalp. All right, so in this instance with my bungee, I created a bungee with 2 bobbies and an elastic. This is going to go directly to my scalp, so I'm going to utilize my bobby pin. And I'm going to place that over, and I'm going to put my index finger here to hold that in place so it doesn't back out as I'm coming around with my elastic. Flat against the head. This is going to be for comfort, but also so it doesn't back out on me, okay? So flat against the head, create that bungee. See? Holds that in nice and tight. If I just went in and bobby pinned this, 9 times out of 10, it would have grabbed too much hair, which causes discomfort, but also creates that movement to push backwards, all right? So when a lot of people struggle with updos, they say, oh, well, I'm just adding more pins and I'm adding more pins and it's not staying. The reason is by adding more pins, we're creating more weight, right? That weight is starting to make the updo sag. And so now you're kind of compensating by adding more pins. And what happens is underneath all that hair, we are creating a web of mess, okay? All of our pins start to do this under the hair, right? They're fighting against each other. And eventually, they're going to do this. So that's when you have updos falling apart, pins falling out, and it's very, very heavy and uncomfortable, okay? It's a kind of a recipe for disaster. So we are only going to use bobbies when we are going to that scalp and when we are absolutely sure that that's where we want it to be. In the meantime, if we're not married to where it's going to live yet, okay? If I put something and I'm like, okay, I think I want this to go there, I'm going to hold its place with a hairpin. Generally, I like these long ones to be my placeholder, okay? So until I'm married to it, it is not a bobby pin. It's always going to be a hairpin. And if I'm ever going hair to hair, it's always going to be a hairpin. All right, so let's bring back 2 and 4. I like to bring these sections back before I do the twist. Reason being, a lot of times if you go in and twist and now you have to bring up these sides, it's like, where does this go? Where does this live? Okay, so I want to bring it back first before I start my twist. So I'm going to utilize my wide tooth comb again, okay? And I want to see where this looks like it's going to live. I want my elevation to come up so that I'm closing this seam here. You see that? If I have my elevation too low, I'm going to create a weird seam. So I want my elevation high. How I create my sag is I come high and then I pinch. And she has enough prep product in there that that's going to stay exactly where I want it to be. This is exactly why prep is important, okay? If she was too soft and I skimped on my prep, this absolutely would not stay where I want it to, all right? Now, I don't know where I want this to go yet. It's going to cross over my mini twist from my step 1, but I'm going to hold its place with an open hairpin, okay? Can we see that? That's holding me in place. Same thing with subsection 4. So let me come on this side for you. And I am going to take these ends and flip them out of my way so that I don't end up crossing over those ends when I bring subsection 4 over. So again, holding it in place with a large hairpin. Wide tooth comb, where are you? Combing this back to the elevation I need. If I see a lot of flyaways, which right now I see a little bit, okay, so what I'm going to do in that instance for hold and control is a little bit of my spray gel. Not my hairspray yet. Again, I'm going to close up this seam here and I'm going to create my sag simply by pulling. And I'm bringing this up here, crossing again over my mini twist that I created. I'm not married to it yet, so I'm going to use my large hairpin just simply to hold it in place. All right, this is what we look like so far. All of this is getting covered with my twist. So the look doesn't matter. We're simply creating a good solid foundation here. Okay, so I like where these are. I'm going to go ahead and insert my long hairpins because they have a little bit further to travel with this. You know, this is bringing up half of the side, right? So I'm going to spin these guys so that they're out of my way and forward. Now we are going to work on our twist. This is the moment where a lot of people are going to ask you, when would I add extensions? Would I go through and clip all these in and then twist it up? No, I would not. So you don't have to carry a weft on you, but this question I can almost promise you will come up in a class. So I like to have an old weft. It can have clips on it. It doesn't have to. Mine does not. But what I do, I just like to at least talk about it, if not show. I will take a weft and I'm going to fold it to the size of about my mini twist, like a ponytail, okay? And I'm going to flip it upside down. Now I could either do a bungee here again. I love a bungee just to hold things in place, nice and secure, rather than adding more bobbies. Of course, there's going to be 2 bobbies on my bungee, but the difference is the bungee is able to hold a lot more hair. If I just bobby pin this, I'd have to use way more than 2 bobby pins. Okay, so I will create another bungee, and this is going kind of right below my mini twist, holding with my middle finger as I bring this around so it doesn't snap out on me. And again, flat against the head. That is where I would place an extension if I needed one, okay? And again, even if you don't have one and you're not going to show that in your class, it's nice to talk about it because it will get asked. All right, let's talk about hair padding, because hair padding is also going to be an amazing asset for us in the updo world. So hair padding, I generally like to have a huge donut for them to see, and then they're always amazed when you clip the seam of the donut and unroll it. and how much you actually need. Okay, so this is my typical size that I utilize. Any bigger than this, yes, it will create volume, but it also creates more things to hide. So I'm utilizing the hair padding not just as volume, but also as an anchor for a lot of my pins. Okay, so you could utilize this in two places. I'm going to put one hair padding here over my extension. And I'm going to just use 2 bobby pins. When I'm attaching, because I'm going to her scalp here, when I'm attaching hair padding, I like to kind of sew it in. So I'm weaving it throughout the padding to her scalp. Okay, same thing on the other side. Okay, I'm flat against the head, but I'm weaving through the mesh of the hair padding to her scalp. Okay, bam. Now we are going to tackle our twist. Okay, so traditionally in a hair twist, French twist, right? We would do this. We do a line of bobby pins and then twist around our hand. We are not going to be that fancy because we want this again to feel more modern. All right, so we don't want this to be too polished. I am going to start brushing in the direction and the elevation that I want to get. Okay, so for my elevation, if I start my elevation too low and start a twist here, she's going to end up with a really weird shape. Okay, she's got all this height here and then this like tiny weird bump twist down here. Okay, so elevation is important in order to get the right shape, but also the right amount of volume. So I'm going to pull this out at least 90 degrees, if not a little bit higher. Okay, so we're going to start our twist this way. Again, we would consult, do you want anything, little hangy bits down here? We decided she does. So I'm going to pull this out and I'm going to spray the underneath with my spray gel just to keep all, this is a huge section of hair. Okay, so I want to help give the hole, I need the hole just to help me keep this section together. And I'm really just raking through with my fingers and the fork end of my comb. Okay, do you notice I didn't do any back combing here? I'm letting my product do the work for me. Okay, sometimes when we over back comb, okay, it creates a mess that we can't undo. It's so hard to cover up back combing when we've done too much. So I'm letting my product really do that for me instead. Okay, now that I'm clean and I'm out to 90 degrees, then I can give it a twist. Okay, and I look from each side because I want to make sure I like this shape. All right, and I do. Guess what we're going to do? Another bungee. So far in her head, we have 3 bungees, which equates to 6 bobby pins. I do have a few hairpins in there, but very few. I think 2 right now. So again, being really strong in our foundation lets us limit how many bobby pins and hairpins we have to use. Okay, so flat against the head. Hold in with my middle finger, stretch across, and back in flat against the head. And it's also going into my hair padding. So it's really very secure. So this whole section, I'm not concerned. She's in that hair padding and she has a bungee. Okay, now if I want to emphasize this twist, I can go through with hair pins and just pin it closed a little bit more if I wanted to. But the twist on its own really does a lot of that work for you. Okay, so I don't really feel the need to do a whole lot of that. But I will clean it up with the fork end of my comb. So I'll take that and I'll just also sometimes pull to give more texture, create a more modern feel. All right, now we have all this hair on top. What are we going to do with it? We are using this hair. Remember, it was already pre-curled, which is great because this is going to help us determine what direction we are going. So I am taking pretty big subsections of hair. Why that's important? If I start taking little microsections and pinning things back, A, I'm getting nowhere fast, but B, it's going to feel dated because it's too polished, okay? So I want to really utilize big subsections, okay? So spray gel for control, use my fork end to go through and just clean this up. And I'm following the curl pattern that it naturally wants to go, but I'm also being mindful of what areas I need to clean up. So I've got a little padding that's exposed over here. So I want this to come circle this direction, okay? And I'm not worried about the size of this because after I have pins in place is when I can go through and open things up, okay? So I'm gonna go in with hair pins, and they are my placeholder because I might get to a section and realize, oh no, I need to move that. If I have put in a bobby pin, it's gonna be a lot more challenging to move that out of the way, okay? So my placeholder is my hairpin, all right? Some of this is going to twist forward. And again, I'm following what the curls are kind of telling me where they want to live. That's why we have pre-curled her. So I'm gonna start bringing what needs to come back, again, because I need to create movement here. And I'm using these subsections, big subsections, okay? Using the fork end. Using my spray gel. Following where I want this to go. Okay, I'm letting the curl live as it wants. And I'm pinning it in the valley of the curl. So what I mean by that, we have our peak of our curl here and our valley here. So I'm going to pin in the valley with a hairpin. I am a big proponent that I do not care what color your bobby pins are, because if they are pinned correctly, we shouldn't see them anyways, okay? So what color they are is your choice. All right, so we're gonna keep grabbing big subsections, okay? And seeing where they want to live. So I'm gonna brush this all together. And I'm following that curl, okay? Keeping its place with more hairpins, open and out, so that I can easily identify them when I need to. I'm not worried about the size yet. Again, we're gonna finesse that once we're further along. For now, I just wanna keep grabbing hair and finding its home. This I will divvy up into two, but we only have about 2 subsections left, okay? I'm gonna see where these ends can come back here. And another big part of this updo is not having anything super finished, okay? So we're gonna leave some of these ends out. That's part of the beauty of this, and what keeps it modern is by leaving some of those little tails out, okay? Now we can come around here. I'm gonna grab this, use my fork to clean it up. If I ever come to a subsection where they're not going in the same direction, but I want them to live together, that's when I would take my iron back out and just recurl the entire subsection together. But I don't do a whole lot of recurling, if I'm being honest. I really like to let the curls do where they want to go and live where they want to live, within reason, of course. I need to create a little more height up top, so I'm going to have this go here. This is where the artistic part comes in, okay? So I can give you the blueprint and I can give you the subsectioning, but this is where we're going to kind of listen to our artist's heart and decide where the movement is taking us, okay? Two subsections left. And I'm going to look at her from the front and see where we can fill in, because we've got two pretty decent sized subsections here. I could also, a fun trick with this updo is just tying it in a knot, which is going to create more loops, and then pinning that in as well. Kind of just seeing where we want this to go here. I am going to make this 2 because there's just quite a bit of hair here. I want to remind you, I have not gone in with my Hold Me hairspray yet, other than to prep the curls. Okay? So that's very key, because I think that can be where a lot of people go wrong, is just going in too soon with their hairspray. Okay, another tool, I love to utilize my pins to also help me with the smoothing out the hair. All right, once we have a general direction, okay, so it doesn't need to, nothing is final yet, but a general direction of all of this hair up, then I'll go in and start finessing. But until then, I'm not going to do any finesse work. We're going to save that all to the end. Because sometimes we go in and we spend a lot of time finessing, and then we end up needing to move something, and then we've done all that for nothing. Okay, so we're going to take a look here. Okay, I have, generally speaking, the hair up. Now it's time to finesse and open these up so this looks even bigger, okay? Because that's a huge part of this updo, is having all of these curls feel very big, undone, almost messy, but messy up. messy done, I guess. So now that I know, I'm loving where these are sitting. Now I can go in and secure those hairpins that I've already used as my placeholder. So I can replace them with bobbies if I know it's going directly to the scalp. But a lot of this is going into my hair padding or hair to hair. So I'm simply going to push those hairpins in now that I'm like, yes, you can stay there. You can live there. We're good. We can be friends. Okay, so now it's just time to open this up and again, do our detail work. So how I like to open these up is I simply take each subsection, take my Puff Me powder, and really give it a good dousing and open that up. This is also going to make it feel a little bit bigger, a little more undone, right? I can now, because I have everything anchored in with its pins, is when I feel comfortable that I can come through and start squeezing some of this, pulling some of this, again, to keep it a little bit more soft, okay? seeing where from the front I want some of this to live. And I don't mind these little ends that pop out. Again, that keeps it modern, keeps it 2026. Okay, so when we are talking about detailing some of our ends, even if they're going to stay out, we don't want them to look dry, right, or thirsty. So what I will do in that case is I'm going to go through with the Hold Me Styling Cream, just a little bit, really get it through my hands, because I don't want this to, like, I don't want to do too much so that it looks wet or ends up getting stick straight, right? We have to be a little bit careful, but I love the matte finish of it, so it still looks very natural. Sometimes if you want to go in with a serum, it can look too shiny on the ends and just look a little bit strange. So I love the Hold Me Styling Cream to finish and hydrate her ends, but still keep it matte. Okay. So there are a few ends that I want to just sneak in and I want to tuck in, and I know they're going to the scalp. Okay. So what I'm going to do in that instance is I will go in with a bobby, but what I'm going to do here is I'm not going to open my bobby. Okay. I'm going to make sure the flat end is at her scalp, but I'm going to take that bobby and I'm going to keep it closed. This makes it really easy to hide if I don't have it open. Because what happens when we open a bobby pin, a lot of times it grabs onto too much hair. And inevitably it does this and backs out. So by keeping it closed, we're going to still have a lot of hold because it's a tight bobby pin. So it's going to grab onto that hair just a little bit. That's all it needs. And it's going to hold it into the scalp really nicely. And it's not going to back out. Okay, so I have a few more places where that will work out really great. And I'm going to go right to the scalp. And I'm going to keep it closed. And that's just kind of like my security bobby pin there that I know I've got a little bit extra in there, but I didn't create these bobbies that are going to eventually back out. I'm going to do the same over here. I'm going to make sure all my hairpins that originally were my placeholders, they're so easy then to take out if I need to adjust them. And I'm actually going to take this one out completely because I would like to replace it with a bobby, because I can feel that it's going to my scalp, but I'm going to keep it closed. All I need is for it to grab a little bit of that hair. So much easier to hide, so much more comfortable. Okay. And this is how she's looking from the front. I'm looking to see that I didn't create any holes. Okay. So I'm kind of going around and I'm just looking, making sure I didn't create any holes that we like from the front. Okay, she likes enough height. Let's talk about finessing our front pieces. Okay, so when it comes to a fringe, I never go above a 1-inch iron. Okay, reason being is we all know it's going to start to fall apart anyways. It's going to start to loosen, excuse me. So I don't want to go in with something, even if she wants just a bend in there, I don't want to go in too big. Okay, so how I'm going to prep her fringe is I will use Hold Me hairspray on top and bottom, and I'm really going to brush this through. Very, very important on this part so that it still feels and looks soft. Okay, then I'm going to go in with my Puff Me powder right at the base. Give her a good few pumps there. And I'm going to do deep back combing, okay? So when we're talking about back combing, notice I didn't back comb really anything. The only time I would need to go in and back comb is perhaps if there was a subsection that just wasn't staying together. I could have given it a nice back comb and then put it back. However, the reason why I didn't need to go in and back comb was because of all the prep product that I applied, okay? So that really acted as my back combing. But here, we're going to need to back comb. So I'm going to do a deep back comb, okay? 2 deep back combs right at the base of her fringe, okay? When I say deep back comb, I am getting in there and I'm getting the entire subsection, okay? When I say light back combing, it's like I'm trying to move a feather, okay? A light back comb, we could go all the way up, right? But this deep back combing needs to live right at the scalp. So we're gonna do deep back combs right at her scalp. That's gonna give me some staying power. And then we are going to curl. The way that I'm going to curl this is I am gonna curl it away from her face, but I'm gonna over direct it across her face. That's what's gonna help give us that pinch, okay? So I'm gonna bring her out here and I'm gonna rock in the base of this curl. Okay, rocking in the base gives us some volume. See how much more lift we got just by me rocking in the base of that curl. Okay, it's warming up the base and it's creating that shape that I want. I want lift over her fringe. I don't want this to be plastered to her face. I want lift, okay? So we're gonna lift with our rocking in the base, and then we're gonna over direct across her face. But away, okay? And I'm gonna catch it so it doesn't land on her nose. This is hot. And I will let that cool in my hand for a second. Once it is cool enough to set down, I'm gonna take my flat creaseless clips and I'm gonna go against. So this is pushing this even more in her face. So I'm gonna let her know, hey, this is just gonna chill in your face for a minute, okay? Same thing over here. Prep with my Hold Me hairspray, both sides. Brush, brush, brush. Top and bottom. Puff Me powder. Deep back combs. 1, 2. Okay. And then I'm kind of using the fork if I need to clean anything up, because it is important to curl a clean canvas, okay? So if I have a lot of back combing and a lot of messiness and then I curl that messiness is gonna be into my curl. You know what I'm saying? So we want a nice clean canvas, rock in that base, creating that lift on her forehead, and then over directing in front, but away. Catch so we don't burn her nose. Okay, so now we are gonna let her cool. While she cools is when I'm gonna go through and do my detailing, okay? So now I'm really looking at, yes, I love where everything lives, but have I covered all my bases as far as any flyaways, frizzies? Because I will not hit this with Hold Me hairspray until I have tackled those frizzies, right? So I'm gonna go through, and this is when I'm doing my really fine detailing, because that's what it's all about. Now, I look at bridal hair like I do editorial sessions, because that's what they are now, right? So I want to be very mindful of where all my frizzies and flyaways are. So I go through again with my Hold Me styling cream and just make sure all of my ends look nice and defined. Okay, so in a perfect world, she's fully cooled up front. Okay, we're gonna remove these, and I'm gonna take, again, fork end of my comb and start working this back. I want to be gentle in this area where I have my deep teases, and fan this out this direction, and I open the curtain. So I come down and then I'm able to open the curtain just like we taught in Glam Waves. Okay, this gives me that beautiful shaping around her face. once I make sure every strand is in place, I go through with my Hold Me just to, again, help fan it out even more. And then I'll take her ends, comb those together. If these also need a little defining, just even what was left on my hands of the styling cream is perfect there. If I really needed to fan this out, I could also do the light teases underneath. So again, like I'm moving a feather, okay? I'm not creating any surface teasing here. It's all underneath. This little bit of moving a feather will create this to stay together even more, okay? Fan out even more. Same thing, I'm going to repeat on the other side. And that is the final look. So now that I'm happy with everything is when I can go in and just give her some added spray. Use my Hold Me at this point to, again, open things up. I'm using that hold to help aid me to open things up if she wants things even bigger. But I will show you a close-up here.